everyone. Welcome back to Relax with Animal Facts. I am Steph Wolf, and today I am going to be learning with you about our furry, scaly, or possibly even slimy friends. And in today's case, it is definitely going to be a furry friend of ours because we are covering the oh-so-wonderful Eastern Lowland Gorilla. This, of course, is a very special listener episode dedicated to Maddie, who actually requested the Western Lowland Gorilla, but I figured it was close enough. A little bit of a preliminary note here. It does seem I'm on the edge of sickness. Hopefully this is as bad as it gets. So if my voice sounds a little bit off, I am hopefully only a little sick. I am definitely not sick enough to skip out on an adventure, and so here we are. I just want to give a really big shout out to those of you who support the show on Patreon. Because of how many of you are supporting the show there, I am able to take some time off of my job to actually edit the podcast myself again. And so a big shout out to all of you patrons in allowing me to do that. But I thank all of you listening for being a part of this animal podcast family. And it is today in which I will be answering many of your questions about me. We have done over 200 episodes. We did an AMA on episode 100, and so I figure why not do it again? I will be going over all of your questions at the end, and so be tuned in for that. If you would like to help support the show and join that growing patronage stuff on Patreon, you can get access to more exclusive episodes, and so I hope to see you there. A huge shout out also to George Vlad for the ambiances used in today's episode. His work is linked in the description, and I encourage you to check him out. And now let us begin to wind down a little bit. A really important part of our adventures are doing a few preliminary things in preparation for them. And if this is your first episode, I welcome you with open arms and encourage you to follow along. And if you are a returning listener, you know exactly what I am going to be asking of you. I have 3 primary exhortations for you. The first is that you put on a pair of hiking shoes. We are certainly going to be needing those for where we are going today. My second exhortation for you is arguably the most important. It is to realize perhaps where you are carrying some tension and to do your best to let it go. For many people, this tension will be in the shoulders, the neck, the head, maybe the arms. Regardless of where it is that is the tension, my exhortation to you is the same. Do your best to relax whatever it is that you are tensing, and a helpful image here is that of Jell-O. I always say on the show that we become Jell-O. That is our star object that we are trying to become. Jell-O is just tense enough to not become liquid, and that's what we're looking for. If you don't know where you carry tension, there is one exercise that can help. Start in your mind from the bottom of your feet and scan all the way up to the top of your head, relaxing as you go. So that might look like the feet and then the ankles, the calves, the quads and the hamstrings, and up and up. This helps you to both identify where you tense a lot and helps you to become Jell-O. That could be a raspberry, a green apple, a cherry Jell-O, whatever color or flavor that you like. My final exhortation to you is that you give your mind permission to wander and journey with me. into the luscious greenery of the Democratic Republic of Congo, where the Eastern Lowland Gorilla resides. I can say this with a full heart. Welcome back, everyone. I think the gorilla was one of the first episodes that we ever did, but like many other episodes, we covered only the gorilla, quite a broad category. There is the Eastern and the Western Lowland Gorilla. There's the mountain gorilla. The point is that we have still so many species to get through, and if you ask me, getting to learn more about more gorillas is something I'm really signing up for. This particular gorilla is the world's largest primate and great ape, surpassing all of the other gorilla subspecies. So these are the King Kongs of the animal kingdom, which is super cool. One way we can distinguish different individuals in an Eastern Lowland Gorilla family is by looking at their faces. Individuals are frequently distinguished by researchers by the distinctive folds of skin around their nose, which are called nose prints. And so, just like you and me are very distinguishable by a unique fingerprint, gorillas have nose prints. They also have fingerprints, but we are just talking about how they are most commonly identified. And it is a reality that at the time of this recording, there are approximately 6,800 Eastern Lowland gorillas alive in the wild. They are all located in this particular area. They aren't spread across the world, but like a few of the other species, are relegated to a small range and aren't so populous in their numbers. I think, thankfully for the Congo's local population, Eastern Lowland gorillas are almost entirely vegetarian. If they were carnivorous, I would be out of there straight away. But these tremendously big and strong animals eat a range of plants, things like herbs, leaves, bark, vines, bamboo, and fruit. They are not totally vegetarian because they do indulge in insects from time to time. This animal stands out from the other gorillas with its stocky build, its huge hands, and short muzzle. The various species of gorilla really do look different. They might look more similar when they are younger, but the adults tend to look different. They each sport a beauty in their own way, and they each are incredibly impressive. What makes them impressive is a range of things: their size, their strength, the ability to communicate, and tons of other things that we'll get into here. Their intelligence can be showcased in a number of ways, but let's start with tool use. Tool use is a significant marker of an animal's cognition. There are many tool users in the wild. I'm thinking about maybe how a raven can use a stick to get food. Perhaps an orangutan can use a piece of wood to pierce a coconut. In the case of the Eastern Lowland Gorilla, their significant cognitive ability is showcased in how they actually assess the depth of water. It can sometimes be challenging to see just how deep a body of water is. They aren't particularly adept swimmers, and so this is important for them. They will take sticks and dip them into the water to assess the water's depth. That way they'll know the stream is only gonna go up to my knees or to my ankles or whatever it is. They'll also use branches to aid in balance as they are navigating through some swampy terrain. So their tool of choice seems to be sticks and branches. In addition to tool use, their cognition is seen in their memory and problem solving. These specific gorillas have an exceptional memory. They're able to recall the locations of food supplies, social interactions, and even human threats. They're also able to solve problems like figuring out how to get to food that's inaccessible or how to navigate rough terrain. Speaking about intelligence, they also have a high emotional intelligence. They can express a wide spectrum of emotions, things like grief, joy, empathy, and laughing. For example, they have been observed by researchers supporting one another following disputes or displaying grieving behaviors when a member of the group or family dies. And the way that gorillas learn a lot is by seeing and copying. The young gorillas will observe the adults, which is essential for learning their survival skills. They have been observed by researchers doing behaviors like nest building and foraging, all while supervised by the group's elder members. As the age-old adage goes, monkey see, monkey do. And despite how trite that phrase may sound because of how often it has been repeated, it is certainly true. They have a remarkable ability to observe, to imitate, to learn, and to adapt. They're also capable of recognizing themselves and others, a very telling mark of intelligence. This can be observed through their reactions to mirrors. They have demonstrated the ability to recognize themselves, showing a degree of cognitive sophistication comparable to chimps and orangutans. Now, I have seen a video in which some researcher, or maybe just individual, left a mirror in a forest. One of the animals to approach it was a kind of gorilla. I'm not sure if it was an Eastern Lowland one, but still, its first reaction was to pound its chest and to charge its own reflection. This, of course, shows that this particular individual was not recognizing himself in the mirror. But when we speak of certain marks of intelligence like self-recognition, memory, and problem-solving skills, these are all things that have to do with the capacity of the animal. It doesn't mean that every single individual within that species will replicate these things, but it means they are capable of these things. The point is, the Eastern Lowland Gorilla is a remarkably sophisticated animal in terms of their intelligence. It also shows in the way they communicate with one another. They'll use a variety of vocalizations, gestures, facial expressions. It's amazing how much they express non-verbally, much like us. They recognize and respond to different signals, demonstrating their own ability to get the intents and feelings of other group members. That is, they communicate with a large amount of nuance. One of the best ways I've seen these communication skills on display is in play behaviors with gorillas. You'll see them laugh and have fun, poke fun at each other, and it's quite wonderful to see. They are also capable of communicating in a non-playful way. These animals are, of course, capable of communicating through more violent gestures. They can charge, they can pound their chests. This is specifically the males I'm referring to here. They can be quite territorial, and so they'll use everything on hand to communicate that. The females and the young Eastern Lowland gorillas are normally silent. It is the adult males that will announce their presence with a series of loud hoots and chest beating, which can be heard for pretty long distances. When they are disturbed, the alpha male will produce a variety of barks, screams, and roars. I think it is fair to say that when they are asserting their dominance, it can be pretty frightening. They do a really good job of asserting their alpha male position. Importantly, this animal doesn't fall into the category of all show, no go. They can show their strength with the beating of their chests, but when it comes to going, that is, engaging in physical combat of some sort, they are impressive opponents. The first thing to mention is, of course, their incredible physical strength. They're among the strongest primates, being able to lift objects over 10 times their own body weight. For example, a male gorilla weighing around 400 pounds or 180 kilos can lift over 4,000 pounds or 1,800 kilos. Again, these numbers are just what they're capable of. As far as I know, I don't think Eastern Lowland gorillas go to the gym trying to bench 2,000, 3,000, or 4,000 pounds on a daily basis. But the fact that their anatomy, their physiology is capable of lifting that much weight is incredible. I am unfamiliar with any 200-pound adult human male that is capable of lifting 2,000 pounds. If somebody knows of such an individual, please send me the link. Another aspect of the Eastern Lowland gorilla's power is their bite. Their bite force is around 1,300 pounds per square inch. To make this more understandable, this is a higher bite force than a lion or a great white shark. This powerful bite allows them to crush through tough vegetation, including bamboo and tree bark, which makes up a lot of their diet. Their strength is showcased also in their ability to climb. And despite their massive size, which might fool somebody into thinking they're clumsy in the trees, they have an arm span that reaches up to 8 feet or 2.4 meters. This, equipped with strong arms and hands, makes climbing and navigating their dense forest habitats a breeze. They can also use their strength to fully pull themselves up trees in search of food. What would be awesome is if one day researchers were going into these lowland tropical forests and found a group of male Eastern Lowland gorillas just doing push-ups and pull-ups, bench pressing tree stumps, spotting each other. I think upon such a discovery, I would order an emergency evacuation, and I don't think they would let you work into their sets. But anyways, another very cool thing about their physical nature is that while it is true that they are not particularly built for running, gorillas for their size possess a very incredible endurance and agility. They can move swiftly through their environment using both their arms and their legs to travel on all fours. This behavior is known as knuckle walking, and their massive strength contributes to their ability to cover ground quickly if they have to. That is to say, in a one-on-one race with an Eastern Lowland Gorilla, you'll most certainly lose. The reason they can move so quickly in such a short amount of time is their muscle composition. A high proportion of their muscle fibers are fast-twitch muscle fibers. These contribute to an explosive strength. It's designed for short bursts of powerful movements, advantageous in both combat and in foraging. I think as far as physical prowess goes, the Eastern Lowland Gorilla is on the upper echelons. With everything taken together, their anatomy, their body composition specifically, how strong they are is seriously impressive. Just one more reason to consider them your favorite animal. Over half of the Eastern Lowland Gorillas leave their birth groups between the ages of 15 and 20. This is around the time that they can have some babies of their own, and until they establish a female harem, they travel alone or with other male gorillas. The alpha males, the dominant males of the Eastern Lowland Gorilla, usually stay with the group of females for the rest of their lives. This doesn't mean that life is all sunshine and rainbows. Male gorillas frequently engage in violent struggles for control of the females. And one really interesting thing is that the lowland gorilla species from the east, which we are covering today, and the west are unable to reproduce. They are that distinct. The females will typically give birth after an 8.5-month gestation period, and the infants for the first 3 years of their lives will sleep in the same nest as their mom. It takes quite a bit of time for these animals to develop. They have much longer rearing periods, closer to us, to orangutans and others. They need time to see and to do, that is, to imitate, to learn, and to grow. In total, Eastern Lowland gorillas can live 30 to 40 years in the wild, while in captivity they can live up to 60. And for the final fact of the episode, we are going to learn about what their name means or where it comes from. Our modern usage of the term goes back to 1847. This name was given by a U.S. missionary by the name of Thomas Savage. It harkens back to a Greek word gorillae, which is the plural of a name given to wild, hairy beings, and I think it is an apt description to call the Eastern Lowland Gorilla a wild, hairy being. I'm sure that can be taken in a derogatory sense, but that's not how I see it. And I just realized we never covered the scientific name of the Eastern Lowland Gorilla, so why don't we do that right now? Better late than never. Their scientific name is Gorilla Virunga graueri. Virunga is a Latinized name in honor of the German zoologist Karl Ackerley. This particular German zoologist wanted to honor the first European who encountered the mountain gorilla in the early 20th century. The latter portion of their scientific name, graueri, is also a Latinized form, named after Rudolf Breuer, the Austrian explorer who collected specimens of this subspecies. And so much of their scientific name is just dedicated to other researchers. It is only the first term, gorilla, which tells us anything about this creature, mostly that they are big and hairy, which, fair enough. And before we get into the Q&A portion, allow me simply to tell you a dad joke. You guys seem to like them, and so I'll keep dishing them. Check this out. What does a gorilla wear in the kitchen? An apron. I actually really like that one. I would like an apron with an ape on it. Does that exist? I think it has to. Now that your night or your day has been sufficiently ruined, I can answer some of your questions. I'm going to get to as many as possible. I guess there is no time limit, and so I'll answer as many as I can. I'm first gonna start over on Spotify because that's where the majority of you listen. Belle kicks it off asking, who made the podcast cover art? It's so nice. I actually got this from an artist on Fiverr. The @ is Hannah Luck. That's Hanna Luck. Hannah is a really talented artist, was very professional about everything. She was really awesome and accommodating, so if you need something done, I encourage you to check her out. I'll actually post her Fiverr profile in the description. Indigo asks, what's your favorite episode that you've done? Honestly, it seems to be the most recent one every time, although I will say there is something very special about the first orangutan episode. Listening to me mumbling and fumbling, saying every 2 seconds, hearing my smoke alarm in the background in the first 5 seconds, there's something beautiful about the unpolished, so I'll say orangutan. Sammy Combs asks, what do you do for work outside of the podcast? Also, how did you start the podcast? I see, Sammy, you are putting a lot of these in one. Do you plan on doing any other shows, possibly live shows? I guess I can spill the beans. I'm a massage therapist. Why did I start the podcast? I imagined a place or a medium by which I could help people really learn to love nature, to love animals, and to gain something in addition to learning. In this case, I guess it is sleep and relaxation. Do I plan on doing any other shows, possibly live shows? I have actually thought of doing something on Twitch before, basically a live show where I would read public domain books for a couple of hours, be all dressed up in a suit on a rocking chair, maybe commenting on the books as we go, but honestly that hasn't materialized to anything, and I don't think I'll do it. It was just an idea. Katie asks, I know you've had interesting podcast setups in the past. I'd love to know what your current living situation is. Do you have an... I am noticing that everybody seems to be smashing together many questions in one. I think just to stay fair to all the other questioners, I'm going to, from this point on, only answer one of the questions. There are a lot, and so I think we have to do this. My interesting setup at the moment is in a basement apartment, and I'm currently talking into my closet. I have some foam here, I have some hanging clothes, all of it to help absorb sound, and so I do what I can. Isla asks, if you could live in any fictional land for a day, which would you choose and why? I guess Narnia looks pretty chill. I'd choose Narnia. And I like C.S. Lewis, so why not? If you don't know, C.S. Lewis is the guy that wrote Narnia. Audrey asks, which animal would you hate to be and why? Dung beetle. I don't know if I have to explain myself. Simone asks, favorite NHL players? I'm also curious about your least favorite players. Of course, I am a Canadian. I am a Leafs fan, and so I'm gonna go with my boy Austin Matthews. And for my least favorite player, just open up the roster for the Boston Bruins, close your eyes, and pick one. Alil Grant asks, what's your favorite animal? Either the kakapo or the orangutan. I'm a bit conflicted right now. Anika also asked what animal I would least like to be, so I'll just say dung beetle twice. Toby asks, would you ever consider doing a season or something about extinct animals like dinosaurs? The answer is yes, and I've actually posted on Instagram polling you guys what you would think. Basically, what I would like to do is actually introduce extinct animals onto the official show. We would have 2 episodes a week, 1 episode extinct, 1 extant. I'll leave a poll on Spotify so you guys can vote. My thought process was there are so many animals that aren't around anymore that can teach us a lot. So if that sounds interesting to you, vote on it on Spotify, or you can leave a comment. Ki Chao Zhang, I hope I'm saying that right, asks, can you please do betta fish? We can definitely do the betta fish, but we'll have to do the alpha fish first. Starfall asks, if you had the opportunity to become any animal retaining human levels of consciousness and self-awareness, currently alive, extinct, or fictional, would you take the opportunity, and what animal would you choose? You know what I would do? I would become a gorilla in a zoo. I would basically just cause chaos. Example things of what I would do. I would start building things. I would take mud and start writing on the enclosure things like monkey will be free. Get people all riled up about a real Planet of the Apes type situation. So yes, I would become monkey and I would become chaos. Mr. McGreedy asks, are you a college student? I feel like I may have heard that in an earlier episode. It would be cool to learn of your studies and neat little things you know how to do or are learning about, besides things related to the show, I guess. Well, Mr. McGreedy, I am a college student, but I'm a bit older. I'm 27. I am finishing up my bachelor's degree right now, and I have been studying for 3 months, but still have 9 months left to go in preparation for the LSAT. In case you are unfamiliar, that is the test that one takes before going to law school. So I am studying for law school. Poppy asks, what's one animal you wish wasn't extinct? I'd be super basic and just say the dodo. They seemed pretty chill. Panzer asks, is there any single organization or charity you would recommend to donate to or to support? Because there's so many different causes for different animals, I can't recommend a singular one. One piece of advice I do have is to always search up the charity on a website like Charity Watch, I think it's called. There are websites that rank charities based on how much they actually give. I obviously dislike charities that are just ways to line people's pockets, and so I'd say make sure you do your research before you donate. Jacqueline asks, what's your favorite colored animal? I'll just say the platypus because it's one color on the outside but another one under UV light. If you don't know what I'm talking about, get to Googling. And now I'm gonna answer some of your questions on Instagram. Mila asks, what's your favorite color? Blue. Now it seems like my voice is going a little bit, but hang tight. I hope it gets better, or I hope you can bear it. I don't know if I'll actually be able to get to all of these, 'cause my voice is starting to go, but let's try. Aphid asks, did you ever pretend to be an animal as a child? And the answer is yes. T-Rex all the way. I was obsessed with dinosaurs. And to some degree, I still am. Dia or Dia asks, would you like to work full-time as an animal researcher? The honest answer is no. I would work as an animal educator. I would love to do documentaries or something, but a researcher, no. It's a very important line of work. I just don't think I'd be cut out for it. Cece asks, do you see working at a zoo in the future? I work in healthcare, but honestly, dream job. I don't think I'll work at or for a zoo, but I can definitely see the appeal. Scarlett asks, your entire life, please. Oh, that's easy. But Scarlett also asks what my favorite Jell-O flavor is. Whatever red is, I don't know what the taste or the flavor profile is, but always red. What animal do you think you're most like? I'd say the kakapo. There's actually some aspects of the kakapo that I really love, and I find them somewhat relatable, heavily symbolic, and for a few reasons I think are awesome. I'll let you guys figure out the finer points of why I find them to be heavily symbolic, or let's say inspirational. Speaking of inspiration, Jules asks, what inspired you to make this podcast? I think I've answered what inspired me to make it. I wanted a platform by which I could help people see the wonder in the world, in animals, in nature, and using this as a methodology by which to mine out joy in every bit of life, even the tough bits. In terms of what inspires me to continue making it, pretty much from day one of making it, it was you guys. I still remember the first day I got any downloads at all. It was 3, and then a spike. I had 18 downloads in one day. I was thinking, how did anyone even find this podcast? And so, if any one of the 3 of you listening that first downloaded this show, big props to you guys. Ryan asks, what's the biggest animal you think you could win a fight against? That is a very good question. So I'm looking for the animal that is the biggest but wouldn't kill me. It's an interesting question. Maybe a capybara. But who in the world would ever want to fight a capybara? I think the capybara is the scientifically most cuddleable animal ever. It is perfectly formed for the cuddle. Give me a capybara body pillow, please. I think there was a few more, but my throat really hurts, if I'm being honest, and I still have to close out the show. And so I'm sure we'll get an opportunity to do a Q&A again in the future. Thank you for all of your questions. I hope you have learned more about me. And let me say, I so enjoy learning about you guys too. Your requests, your messages, I love hearing from all of you. And it is what has kept me going for so long. How the show helps, impacts that I couldn't imagine the show would have. It makes me very grateful to be hosting this show and to be given the opportunity to help you sleep and learn. I'm not going to read a review today. I think we've gotten to a lot of things, and again, my throat is starting to go. Just to give you a heads up, I'm going to be doing a Relax with Animal Facts pajama set giveaway, so look out for that. I'm just finishing up some of the more logistical aspects of this, figuring out exactly how I'll do it, but I'll be posting something soon about instructions for how to win. If you would like to request an animal, you can do so by sending a message to relaxwithanimalfacts@gmail.com. The resources used in this episode came from faunaflora.org, virunga.org, and etimonline.com. A huge shout out to George Vlad for the ambiances used in today's episode. His work is in the description. What a wonderful animal we have learned about today. an animal that is very close to us as an animal podcast family, given that it was one of the first we learned about. We have come full circle, and it's awesome because we can do this circle night and day for another 100 years. How many more species are there to learn about? We're barely on the foothills of all of the animals. And so keep requesting, keep listening, make sure to follow the show if you enjoy it, and I look forward to the next adventure together with the next animal. Take care.